man, I was thinking deeply about NFTs a lot.
God, Jesus.
Like this past I don't know, 2 weeks. I've been thinking probably since we last recorded, right? Because we were talking about NFTs on that one too.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. No, I don't want to be a crypto bro. I kind of had like a full circle realization today. Okay, I'm like hinting at something that I was thinking we would get to later, but I'm just going to talk about it because I just want to talk about it. So my understanding of NFTs is that like the only value that makes sense to me, and at least at the moment, is in the digital collectible sense, not in the metaverse or whatever social bullshit. I don't really understand or care about any of that, or like the Bored Ape NFT stuff, which was like $1 million monkey pictures that give you access to like a Facebook group or some shit. I don't know. I don't understand. But basically, if you create this idea of digital art, and you make, say you hand draw a series of 10 trading cards for Homegames, right? The cost to us, I'm not saying to do this, by the way. I'm saying this is like the thought I had. So just follow me until the end. Mm-hmm. So if we don't have funds to fund this for years, right? Like this is the cost for Homegames comes out of my pocket. We don't make any money. And so I don't want to do a Kickstarter or whatever, like kind of lame shit like that. We can't go to Shark Tank with this level of fidelity, that Mr. Wonderful wouldn't want this. So it's like, well, how would we raise capital? Well, if you could make a small series of digital trading cards, for example, for Homegames, and it's like series 1, we only made 10. You could buy one of them for $100, and so 10 super loyal day one fans own this collectible, and there's only 10, and so we Homegames minus whatever the gas fees, whatever the fuck crypto stuff, minus the fees and whatever, we make like $800-900, something like that, to fund Homegames. And like I said, the labor, the cost to us was relatively low. There's no actual physical good. So this is where I was for about a week in my head, thinking, wouldn't that be a cool idea? Like if I really went and understood the crypto stuff to confidently make something like that. And then I thought, while I was playing Insurgency, a very like a lightning bolt moment. And I was like, this sounds lame as fuck because there's no trading card. Like one of my coolest possessions is a Japanese shiny Charizard, a Pokemon card that my mom got me like probably 22 years ago, something like that. And it's appreciated since then, but it's not anything crazy or whatever. But it's one of my coolest possessions because it's just so old. It's from that time, and it is what it is. And you don't have that with digital stuff. Like it's just older data. Like the actual aging doesn't happen to it. Like history happens to things, right? And you could preserve things or whatever, which is cool too. But there's something cool about it. Like this literally existed in 1400 or whatever. You see a fucking Viking axe or whatever the hell happened in 1400. I don't know. and so that doesn't happen with NFTs. And I was thinking, why don't we just make trading cards? Like the cost to us is still low. It's a physical good, and the value is like inherent in what it is. I'm not saying to do this again. I'm just saying this is where I'm at mentally. Like I think I tried to understand the crypto stuff, thought I got an understanding or value out of the crypto stuff, and then realized that value exists in the real world too, and it's not much different. Which is like make a simple thing that people can buy. Mm-hmm. So I guess that would really be like T-shirts or something. I don't know. We can make money with this somehow in the future. I was just trying to think of whatever, because I'll talk later. But I realize we need to have like a reasonable limit because we let people use resources that directly cost me money the more they use them. So we need to kind of limit some things or introduce like a premium tiered model, with like pricing and stuff, which, like I've said a long time, but I'm not against it. It's just something to think about.
Yeah, I really think the trading card idea would be super dope. I like the actual physical trading card more than I like NFT's idea.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because it's like the only downside to me of the NFT thing was that it sucks. It's like, wait, how do I make it not suck? Make it like a physical thing. That's like the cool part of it is the trading card thing.
Yeah,
so
Do you remember like the really old like PlayStation 1 t-shirts that you used to get like at GameStop when you bought a PlayStation 1 or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Like
the
those
launch
things are super
special
dope.
stuff.
Like anyone who has those still, like that's actually like a piece of history. Like that's fucking cool. Like,
Totally.
no one's out here like, damn, you bought a skin for that 30-year-old video game? Like, no. People aren't that hyped about it.
But yeah, like having that kind of stuff, like like we said, it's of an era, it's of that time. If you were in Times Square on 2000, June whatever 2000, you have an Xbox shirt that was signed by Bill Gates, whatever the fuck. It's like, holy shit, it's like a real world thing that you experience, and this is a remnant of that. And you can kind of sell it to people online, and it has value. It appreciates if it's cool, and I don't really like the idea of selling it, but it is what it is. It's like a history artifact in a way, but it's like very modern at the same time. I don't know. Yeah,
I like the physical merch idea. Recently, after getting into like buying stuff that I like from creators that I like the idea a lot. I think it's dope.
You signed up for OnlyFans.
Fucking buttholes are us, friend.
That's my next startup after Homegames. This doesn't work out. Buttholes
you have
are
like
us.
the perfect domain for it, don't you?
Superbooty.net coming soon.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
You could be the next feet Wikipedia, but it's for booty.
Ooh. I like the idea. We'll workshop it. I need to I think the biggest hurdle will be clearing it with my wife, having an ass website.
Just tell her that your ass will be up there too. Like you, Joseph's butt, will be up on there too, and people can rate it.
That's the gimmick. It's like, here's 10 ass photos a day in a grid, and one of them is mine. So it's like
no, it would eventually be too easy. It has to be like, here's 10 booties. You got to rate them, and then like superbooty.net is like the aggregate rated site of like. Then like at the end of the year, you can have like your tournament of like 12 winners, right? Each month has like top booty. You know what I mean?
I've actually spent more time thinking about that idea that you might think, because I was thinking, how would I use superbooty.net? Like, could I actually use it as a blog? Like you said, to kind of, that's the thing, is like giving scores to butts, but then it's like, I don't want to be the website that gives, mostly women points like that. I just don't
put
like
in
the
nude
idea.
butts too. That's all I'm saying. You gotta
But then
like
those dudes would feel bad about their butts.
Yeah. Put my butt up there.
All
Take
right,
a picture of my butthole and put it up.
All right, we'll see.
You seem unconvinced by this idea.
It's like you just asked me if we can get McDonald's for dinner. Okay, we'll see. We both know goddamn well that that's not happening.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with Mickey D's.
Okay, well, I guess we might as well say that that's the start of the episode. Hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday, May 10th, 2022. My name is Joseph, and this is Yazeed. We're like inversing the intro today. Today is episode 107. Is that correct?
It is.
107.
I mean, you wrote down
Homegames
107. I trust you because I don't
trust me. I tell myself every time that I forget that I won't forget the next time, because I hate when I do this, but here we are. I'm just going to make sure on Spotify that the last one was 106, and it was. Hello, everybody. The last episode we talked about, I believe it was Homegames core cleanup stuff. I don't really remember. We recorded it so long ago. This 2 weeks thing is just enough to forget about the entire project and the podcast
Old age
completely.
is really getting to you, bud.
Yeah, the years have not been kind to me. But yeah, that was basically, I think, what we talked about last time. This time we have a whole lot of Homegames core changes. According to the schedule, I was supposed to have everything buttoned up, rewritten, and Yazeed and I were supposed to have done a deep dive on all of my changes for Homegames core before we move on to the next component. And basically, there's more changes than I expected. There's a lot of stuff there, a lot of things happening that I kind of glossed over previously, that I just never really gave full thought to like flesh out how it works. And so that's what I'm going through now. And I'll talk more about that stuff later in depth. But basically, that's the state of things. Is I'm still working on Homegames core stuff. Once I get all of these changes done, which I'm already more than half done, I think, with all the stuff I wanted to do. Once I get this stuff done, rewriting that code and then deep diving with Yazeed. So we'll probably on the next episode, we will talk about more in-depth Homegames stuff with Yazeed's perspective as well. But this one will probably be mostly me describing what's different now or kind of some of the hurdles that I've run into.
Let's go.
Yazeed.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Do you have any do you remember the last episode, what we talked about? Or do you have any follow-up even better?
Do I remember the last episode? I don't remember yesterday, so the answer to that is probably not. I think that the follow-up, one of the things that we had talked about last time was the ability to see games that you downloaded on your dashboard. So I'm interested to see if you're able to crack that egg nut.
Oh, I cracked the fuck out of that egg nut. Yeah, so you were saying because on Homegames at the moment, or at least when I showed it to you, you opened up the client and the dashboard would show with all of the games that you had locally, as in like in the games directory of your repository, versus games that you downloaded online through the Homegames landlord service. So when you downloaded a game, you would play it, but then when you went back out to the dashboard, the game was not in the list because we didn't list stuff that you had downloaded, just the stuff, like I said, that was in the code. So yeah, I fixed that. It was pretty easy. Just like on startup, look at the directory of games and just look at the index.js files and parse the game and say, this is what this is, and you can play it. It's not really that crazy, but I did run into one kind of quirk, I guess, with the way that we store all that data. So like what we talked about before was that there's a distinction between the games that ship with Homegames and the games that people download from Homegame services, and that's what this is, right? Like the games that people download need to be viewed and stored separately because they're accessed and whatever. They're just different things, but they're actually kind of viewed the same in terms of Homegames code. It's like, oh, it's just some code that I'll reference and then point a game server to and say, go for it and put people into it. So what am I trying to say? Basically, game versions is the real point of what my ramble. So when someone publishes a game, they can make changes to it and then that'll create a new version, right? So like the other version is preserved in history. I can always look at that previous version of the game, but the new version is kind of the default. And this is what, most people ideally would be playing when they actually use Homegames, but you can always go back to an older version. And so that doesn't hold for stuff stored in Homegames code because our version tracking history and that stuff is Git. It's Git history. So it's not like Homegames maintain servers that have built metadata stuff that we maintain in databases so we can keep track of versions and consistently load them and all that kind of stuff. This is just, we could do like a Git history for a single file and try to do some crazy thing that way and version games that are stored in Homegames code. But that distinction between, like I said, downloaded versus in-code games, it made me rethink the data model that I use all that stuff, or that I use for all of that stuff. So, yeah, basically just need to rethink that and make it cleaner because the code became a nightmare. I essentially copied and pasted it everywhere and then just handled different inputs with that same logic. So that's a sign of fucking it up, and that's what I was doing. So anyway, that was rambly, but basically I did that.
So sorry, maybe I missed the actual explanation part. So if I publish a game on version 1.0 and then and then I publish another version on version 1.5, for example, if somebody had downloaded my game, they would have 1.0 and they would need to go back and re-download 1.5, correct?
Yeah, so yes. So at the moment, the way that you can actually find a game is by having the game ID and the version ID, which points to a specific version of a specific game. So we don't have the search stuff implemented yet in the dashboard, so you can't like find a new game dynamically in that way. You have to have someone send you the game ID and the version ID. And so if I were to, the current state of it, if I were to publish a new version of that game, I would need to send them that new version of the link. And then it would download that version to their local directory, and then they can access both versions of the game. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do. Yes, it does.
And in the future, I guess that would look like you have this kind of section on your dashboard that has your downloaded game, so that would, the old version of it would still be there, and maybe there's like a little badge, updated recently or something like that. Kind of, I think Steam does that, or at least it has a history of all of your recent updates. And I don't know if we would do like an auto update where we automatically download the new version and keep it locally because you've played that game before. Maybe, I don't know. I don't really like that idea.
We could do what Steam does, where we just notify that there's an update, and you can get it if you want.
Steam will just automatically schedule them for me though, and just download
I think
it
you
and
can turn that off on like
Yeah,
a
but
per game basis. You can do like, but I'm saying what we do the reverse, where we automatically have it flagged off, but just like let you know like, hey, there's updates for these games if you want them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that seems easier too. Instead of, I don't know, I just don't really like the idea of automatically downloading stuff that you didn't ask for, because the entry point to getting a home game, I guess is the name for an individual's product that they publish to Homegames, is a home game. Fuck, what was I gonna say? Oh, downloading a home game is like a lesser or a lower barrier to entry than buying a video game for your Xbox or something, right? If I buy a game, like if I buy a disc and put it into my Xbox and I play it every day, the Xbox will assume that I care about the updates, automatically download them and install them, which makes sense to me because I've like invested in this game. I'm putting time and I put money into it, as opposed to I just click download on this random ass thing. It's like when you first got an Android phone and you downloaded all the bullshit in the free section of the Google Play Store. Just like, this is all fucking terrible, but I'm just downloading anything. So I don't want all those things to have lingering effects of new versions and stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Also, it's like, you might not want to play that game anymore. Like, if you picked up a game and you're like, you know what, this really isn't my thing, you could delete it, or you could just keep it and just never update it because you don't need any more. You basically don't need your computer to waste any more memory to hold on to it. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah. And I think one thing too that kind of makes it a lower impact thing overall is that the games are so small. I mean, your game is typically going to be a few kilobytes probably at most. Say even the game is a megabyte. That's like, what is the term? Basically much smaller. Exponentially smaller, that's the word I was looking for. Exponentially smaller than like a Steam game or a Microsoft download game or whatever these days. It's like 100 gigs. It's not even comparable.
Yeah. Imagine buying a game on Steam that was 1 megabyte.
You do sometimes where it's like a weirdo 8-bit indie thing for 40 cents. It's like 17 kilobytes. It's like, this is a fucking text file.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I've seen like text-based adventures for more than that on Steam. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know how games are made. I don't know anything about game development. But anyway, I was going to say something and then I forgot. But basically I have this list here with other things that I've changed. And so I will start to go through that list. One of them is assets. So previously we had talked about how, this is a long time ago when I implemented assets originally, and assets are showing images and having sounds played in your game. And we talked about how we wanted to have these assets controlled through our services because we can't just trust random ass URLs anywhere on the internet. So we need to have people upload assets through us, tell us on our website, like, I have permission to upload this. I think for legal reasons we have to do that. I don't know, but I'm guessing. And so we just kind of manage the whole thing. And so what you get in the output is an asset ID that we give to you, saying we have your file, we've stored it over here, and you can reference it with this string, this unique identifier for your asset. And so I went through our code base and I replaced all of the old URL asset types to just have simple, ID references. When you make a new asset with an ID, it'll download from assets.homegames.io. So you don't have the ability anymore to just pull random URLs. And so what that means, sadly, is that in my draw test, the image of Kanye has to go because I don't own that image and I didn't want to upload it to like our asset server and use it. So I can't have the Kanye shrug in our draw canvas anymore. It has to be replaced by something. Maybe I can hand draw Kanye and we can get that hand drawn asset and we can mint it, make a fuckload of money on the NFT market because it's my hand drawn one of one Kanye. I'm just telling you, this is where my head's at.
Would love to see you draw Kanye. I am concerned with how that's going to turn out and be viewed by the general populace. So.
No, I'm going completely unhinged, dude. I'm losing my entire shit. I think because I was up till midnight working on all this stuff too. I'm like in a different headspace.
I saw you push a commit in the middle of last night. I was like, damn, boys putting in hours.
One of my coworkers recently was like, he's like, "Hey man, I found your GitHub. You're a beast." I was like, "What the?" I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "I don't know." It's kind of like someone saw your butthole photos that you're gonna use for your friend's website. You know, it's like it's super personal.
It's not at all like that. It's not at all like that. It'd be like if you were a recording musician and somebody saw your like timesheets being in the studio. That's what it's like to see someone's GitHub that looks like your GitHub. Your GitHub looks like you work like 24 hours a day, brother. Like, your GitHub is like an insane person's GitHub. I want you to know that.
Well, I guess that's a good thing, but what was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't know. He mentioned that he saw Homegames, like, and he wasn't super sure what it was, but he just saw all the code that I put into it, and it got me thinking how many lines of code I've actually written. Like, we can do the contributions graph on GitHub, which will show you changes to like your package lock and all the other kind of stuff. And then if you accidentally commit your node modules directory, you have like 1 million fucking lines of new code, and those numbers get screwed up easily. So I would like to, at some point before beta, that's another thing I want to talk about is the word beta, but before we launch our thing in July, whatever we end up calling it, I want to what was I just get a count of all of the code. Like, how many lines have we written in total across all the components, all the services, all of the Homegames engine stuff, the web client, the build scripts, the deployment scripts, the utility tools, like fucking everything. It's probably not that much, but it's probably a significant amount of code.
I'd guess it's like 1 to 200,000 lines.
Whoa, no, dude. I would guess it's like 10K max.
No way, dude.
For all of Homegames? No, it's like 10,000 lines of code.
No way.
Not counting dependencies, not the WebSocket library, none of that kind of, like, just files written by us. Oh, and the website. Like we have the website too.
If you have like 10 files that are 1,000, if you have 10 files and each file is like 100 lines, that's 1,000 lines of code.
Yeah, but see, this is the upside of me and my caveman method is I just write everything in one file. I know how long they are. 1,200 lines.
It's like 5, 6, 1,000. It's like 5 to 1,000 lines per file at that point. What you're saying is that you don't have 100 files. I hope you have close to 100 files.
No, but we'll get the count. But I would bet it's closer to 10 than it is 100. But we'll see, I guess, in a couple months.
All right, but we're not doing Price is Right rules. We're not doing the closest without going over. It's gonna it's flat closest.
I would still say I'm
absolute closeness.
Yeah, dude, it's not even close to 100K. It's no question. It's 10 or less.
All right, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Oh fuck, I might be wrong. I might be super wrong. I'm just thinking about some of those files in my head.
Yeah, you're fucking wrong, brother. You're wrong, and I'm gonna win this one.
Maybe. But yeah, talking about the asset upload stuff, it reminded me that, like I said earlier, I don't know if we were recording or not, but basically when people upload files, there's a cost. I have to pay for S3 storage, and it's relatively cheap, per file. Like a megabyte is cheap to store, a gigabyte is cheap to store, whatever, in S3. So with an asset upload image or an asset upload size limit of 50 megabytes, it doesn't seem reasonable that people would really. Basically, I don't want people to use this like Dropbox, because there's no limit on this storage. And I'm not saying come and give me all the files you would ever want. So having an actual per file limit kind of reduces the chance of that, but also just I don't know. It seems reasonable at least to have that now, but we also need to have a limit for assets in total. Like you can't upload more than this, like a gigabyte of assets, at least maybe on our free tier. And then we have this other kind of premium thing where the model at that point becomes charging game developers, which I actually don't like at all. So I don't know how we would make money from people in that case. Or it's like, if we find a way to monetize the people in a not shitty way, then it's like you get free storage above this if you get this many players. But then it's like, what if you need the more storage and no one likes your shit? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. We need to find a way to make it work. But I think if people are uploading more than a gigabyte of assets and they're using them legitimately, then we can sell some shirts and pay for this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The business model in my head is sell some shirts.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, also, like, as long as it's not like $100, as long as it's not like the Twitter developer API where it's like, oh, you want unlimited whatever, it's like $1,000 a month, right? Like,
yeah.
I think if it's like, I don't know, $5 a year, I think that's one, reasonable, but two, like that would probably cover like the cost, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's what I'm thinking. I mean, $5 a year, maybe I think it would cover a gigabyte or something like that per user.
Yeah.
I forget the actual pricing, but it would. I'm not trying to make a profit off of that. Like, it just needs to be out of necessity because all this stuff costs money, and we have bounds on all of it in the sense that like we have a set number of servers. They can only handle so many requests. We have some things in our AWS stuff like Dynamo, which it doesn't auto scale at the moment, but I could set it to auto scale where basically our costs would go up and performance would go up and people can just hit the site and charge me money. But at the moment it's set to a limit where it'll throttle at a certain point. So my point is that our costs are mostly fixed, and adding a feature onto our website that adds a direct cost with no bound will fuck us, and we just need to have a bound to it at some point without unless we bring in money to account for it. So that's some like businessy shit, which I never thought I would think of in this kind of way, you know. Like doing taxes last month, I was like, okay, maybe having an LLC for all these expenses makes sense because you can like write off expenses, whereas me, I'm just freeballing this shit and spending all of my personal money on this like expensive not company. You know, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know anything.
Listen, I don't understand taxes at all, so I have no advice for you.
Great.
All I know is that I pay my taxes, and that's the extent of my knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say I paid my taxes, you know. Don't want them knowing too much.
Two things are true about me still to this day. I've always paid my taxes, and I've never lost money gambling, and that's how we do it.
It's a great way to set yourself up for failure in the future. Going that confidently into the future, you will be fucked by gambling or taxes, or possibly both.
Nah, we'll see. Very good gambler.
Okay, that inspires confidence. I believe you now. I've wrapped around 180. We're back on.
Thank you. That's right.
So, okay, downloaded games show locally. We talked about that briefly. The new modal with a little version switcher. You can play an old version. This was a bug. Okay, so the next thing is filtering subtrees by player ID, which sounds boring, but I think it's actually pretty interesting. So the bug was when you want to show something on the screen only to a subset of players, not all. For example, say I wanted to show your card in a deck of cards or whatever, and I wanted to show only you your card. I would need to set the player ID that I want to see that node on every single node in the tree of nodes I'm building for that player's view. So that's like a technical explanation. Like the card node that the player sees and everything underneath it would all need to explicitly have the player ID set on them. It wouldn't know like this thing this thing at the top is only visible to this player, so therefore everything underneath it is visible to this player. It says, okay, this is visible to this player, but every child of this node potentially could be visible to others, which doesn't make any sense, because it's like, if this subset of thing is accessible to only you, then like I have no atomic unit, which I've said before is like one of the things my mentor told me I needed to have in my design for a thing, like having an atomic unit. Your atomic unit is not the subtree for the player to see, it's one node, as opposed to saying this is a thing that I want this player to see. This is a collection of things that I need to tell you about every single one of them for this person to see it. I guess if that makes any sense. But basically I fixed that bug. It's not super interesting to talk about how I fixed it, but we recursively moved through the tree. I added another data structure to store like a memory of who needs to be filtered for this particular thing by going down the tree. So, yeah. Do you have any questions about that? You understand the problem and stuff?
I understand the problem. Just a question on your solution then. So if I have I'm using my hands for anybody who listens on like audio only. Node 1. Underneath node 1, there's a child node 2. Mm-hmm. Or node 1A, for example. If I'm not supposed to see node 1, but I am supposed to see node 1A, can we still do that or no?
Is 1A a child of 1?
Yes.
No, you cannot do that.
Okay.
Because it's saying the whole like parent-child thing, at least to me, you can argue with me, I'm not saying I'm right, but it to me says everything that is a child of this node, directly or indirectly, at some point in its like lineage, if it's a child of this thing and this thing is only accessible to some people, then it doesn't make any sense for anything to be able to access something through me if they can't access me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the hierarchy stuff I think needs to be maintained where it's anything under this tree is visible to only the most restrictive thing that we can, as opposed to on every single node it's, well, anybody can see it by default and you have to tell me unless you want it to. It's like, no, the thing above me says only this person can see it, and the thing above them said that only these people can see it. So I can be looking at like a subset of a subset of a subset, and keep going whatever. And to maintain those permissions, it makes sense to just kind of restrict it as we go down, but not to have it be so like necessarily explicit per node in the tree.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also the dashboard stuff, like the kind of I didn't redesign it again, but the most recent redesign, I basically finished implementing that stuff. So more consistent colors with our color scheme, like our brand scheme, which is what we have on the website as well, like our color scheme. That red, white, and blue, this kind of like soured looking stars and stripes, It's like a pastel America.
Wait, that might be my new Discord name, Pastel America. That's a great one.
I just had the thought in my head, like right when it left my mouth, I was like, oh, cool, episode title. Got it.
That's a good name,
America.
Pastel America.
Yeah, so anyway, more consistent colors. We have a new settings modal, so you can change your name again. I got that working again with Homegames, which is kind of just our player metadata service that we have running alongside Homegames. Got that working because I had previously scrapped it when I started restructuring the Squisher and Homegames core stuff, but brought it back and it wasn't that bad. I have more thoughts on this, but basically I think that Homegames is going to be like an in-memory data store that is used for all player info. And I want to stop having information on the player object itself, and I want the player object to be super bare bones and just have like an ID and some other required metadata. But for anything that can change settings or any kind of dynamic data, I want to have any accessor of that data fetch it fresh. So there's no caching, there's no like stale data, and because we don't have a persistence layer, I guess, we don't have the slowness of a database. So it's not like making a database query, it's just the speed of the HTTP request over a local network, which is 20 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds on average, whatever, which is about a frame of animation if you're doing 66 FPS or 60 FPS. So it's like pretty quick in the grand scheme of things. So if something needs to access, for example, your settings to see if it should play a sound or not, so if you have sound turned on, then it needs to fetch that stuff from Homegames, which is always just fresh data. So we don't have the possibility of, non-fresh data. And those requests, like I said, are cheap.
Should we be... Sorry. When you say we should be accessing that data, are you saying like we provide like the Homenames ID to this like Homenames service, like the same memory service basically, and it gives us back like, here's the metadata? Or are you thinking more like accessor functions where it's like, for this asset ID, can we play sound? And it returns back like true and false.
Yeah, that's a good question. That would be an interesting way to model it, I guess. But no, I was thinking that it would basically just say, for this player, can they do this? Because the thing accessing it is it's the client, right? So like the client sees something it has access to and interacts with it because it has access to it. So needing to have some other sort of layer, like before we return stuff to the player, to say, like, give it their kind of filtered version of the world, as opposed to giving them the world. Like the way it is now is, if I have a phone booth in the middle of a level, and you can view it, and this player can view it, because they have the phone booth setting turned on, I guess, then you're both seeing the same phone booth because it exists in one place and it is what it is. Like, there's no change in what it is for either of you, as opposed to having like an accessor that says, hey, can I look at the phone booth? And it says, or can I get the phone booth? And it says, here's the phone booth that's not accessible, or here's the phone booth that is accessible. It's like a different view of this thing as opposed to giving you the thing. You know what I mean? It's like a warped view of the phone booth instead of just the phone booth. So I think it makes sense to just have it be filtering for player, like, can this player do this? Can this player do this? Before I give them the results of like whatever part of the world they're looking at, as opposed to like I said, changing the world to give them like a fucked version of it that's specific to them and what they can do in it.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. I guess though, doesn't this mean that the game developer doesn't have access to that information, like when they're making their game, like basically like the game's logic doesn't have access to what the player settings are?
No, it totally does. It's just, so in your class you can have you can instantiate a new instance of call it a Homenames helper, but it's essentially just like a service client, a Homenames client, which just has a get and a put, basically. It's a get and an update, where you give it an ID and it'll give you your results back in a promise, or update, and it'll again just give you a promise. When it finishes writing or finishes persisting in memory, it'll give you a thing. So it's like a pretty simple interface. You get the data, you update the data. So if someone says, for example, change my, like on the system level, they change their settings to sound off or whatever. The game, the next time it has logic for sound, it'll be like, oh, this player settings, like I just got a fresh thing and this player setting says sound off, so I'm not going to do a sound thing for them here. So they can just access it directly through like a service client they put in their game. Okay,
cool. I would be wary of giving developers the ability to change settings for a user though, because I can see a world where someone has like an ad and they just like force sound on to play an ad, basically.
No, yeah, that's right. I'm thinking there might be a case where we give like a subset of things accessible to games, not the entirety of settings. So like if we had some sort of other system-wide thing that like, let's say that we had a stats system and that we wanted to be able to write stats from a game. So you can have like a Homegames page on our website where it's like, here's every game you've ever played and how much time you've spent and all this other kind of shit, right? Like whatever you want, whatever stat breakdown you want from a game, and the game developer defines how those stats are made. So if we had like a stat collector thing, then we would have like a similar model. Maybe you're right, Homegames won't be responsible for this kind of data, so we wouldn't allow puts from games. But the idea of some other kind of HTTP service running locally that manages something, like even if you wanted to push logs to something, whatever, where you just make a request to this thing and it handles the outside data access stuff that it needs to do. I think that will work. But you're right. Yeah, we probably shouldn't have people change settings like system settings in games.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. That is my only concern.
Yeah.
And definitely not because I play Microsoft Solitaire and they constantly change my volume all the time and I hate it.
Dude, I just installed a Windows update. It's why my Audacity wasn't working before this, because Windows Update reset my fucking microphone permissions or something like that. Something happened. Every time it Windows updates, shit stops working and I get so mad. I go to the services, disable Windows Update, turn it off, and it somehow manages to turn itself back on at some point and then restart my computer when I had 30 YouTube tabs open that I was going to get to at some point. It's the fucking worst.
This man actually just stockpiles 15 hours of YouTube videos that he's going to watch eventually.
I do. And it'll be like 7 hours straight where I don't blink and it's just YouTube videos playing in the background. I'm just trying to absorb knowledge.
Christ.
Anyway, so that's the kind of dashboard changes that I've made, just, prettying stuff up for the most part and rewriting a little bit. I need to fully rewrite it once I'm done kind of shuffling the logic around there, because it's not like I said, that model stuff between a in-code game and a downloaded game. Working through that now, but once I figure out that the way to abstract that, I'll basically rewrite the entire dashboard, because I've been building on top of it for too long. Not like redesign it, I'm just going to rewrite the code. And I've kind of been incrementally doing that with directories, because you, Yazeed, told me that basically it would be helpful if we had directory structures for games. And, a lot of my stuff has been in one file. So I think I worked out a model that makes sense for games to work in a kind of general case. And we'll obviously find flaws with this as time goes on, but the way it works now, at least in the dashboard, you have the main class, right? The dashboard extends game, the game class that we have. So it works just like any other game. And so the main logic, the actual tree management stuff for the game itself happens in the class. But for components, I have different files for that. So it'll be like settings modal is its own file. And then that thing, kind of in a React style thing, a React style component, just has kind of the top level component that we need and then all of its dependencies within it. So the settings modal will have like the name and the buttons and all that kind of stuff in it as well. But from the dashboard, it just says, give me a settings modal. And it returns a component, pure component, with some callback like handlers. So like on click, on close, on in, whatever. You can kind of set your own callbacks for whatever your component is. And then the callbacks execute in your main class, which actually manipulate the tree.
Hey, nice. I like this.
So you separate your actual UI from your logic.
Let's go. Pure functions. That's what we talked about last time.
Oh, yeah. Pure functions. Yeah. So I guess in that sense, these are, because they're just returning simple UI components. They don't have knowledge of where they're going besides themselves. Like the settings modal knows about everything underneath it, everything inside of it, I guess. But a close button has no fucking clue what's going on. It's just like, I'm a close button. I'm a big X and a square. And when I click something, I can tell you about it. But I don't know. And we can kind of have, like, it opens the door for a more generic thing in the future where, if everything has a close button, if everything has a settings modal, and they all have the same code, it's like, well, we can kind of pull this out and make it generic. But anyway, That's how that works. It's pretty cool. Next thing on here is Homegames, which I said already how it works. And I think that model makes sense, and I want to keep using it, and I'm pretty happy with how it works. And I've talked about this other kind of stuff. Oh, and linting. We have ESLint. I'm just going to use its config and just run that shit, and then I'll do -- fix all. And if it can't fix things, I'll just say okay, and I'll push it still. And also, our pipeline tests are failing on GitHub whenever I push to this branch, so I need to look into what's going on there. But yeah, I'm kind of in the thick of it, knee deep in the shits, as they say, and I will.
Since then.
I will get through this list of tasks, and Yazeed and I will do a deep dive into the shits, and get back to
You're
you next
actually
week
just
or
making
next
up a saying it. That's what they say, and then just going.
You don't know how many theys there are, dude. If one person on Earth has ever said knee deep in the shits, then I'm correct, technically.
Fair. All right.
This is Pastel America, dude, where I'm free to do whatever I want.
I'm actually gonna change my Steam name to Pastel America. That's too dope to pass up.
I think a lot about matte finish. Like, I really think. Remember the name for a porn star we came up with a few episodes ago?
Oh,
Matte Finish. To me, he's a race car themed porn star. Like, he has a whole personality. I know what his mustache looks like. He's Matte Finish. He's like a mix between like 1990s Speed Racer and Talladega Nights.
You know what? I can see it. I can see it. I like the race car. What if it's just like a racing sport, like is also into track and field or something?
You're trying to give him depth, so he's not just a porn guy.
No, so it's not just a race car guy.
Oh, but he's Matte Finish, dude. He's a porn guy first, race car second.
Yeah, and then like third, he's like into track and field. Basically, I'm giving him more options. More storylines to be a part of. Like, what's his name? The guy who's like all kinds of stuff in porn.
Oh fuck! Wasn't he like in trouble for something? Didn't he do something bad?
I don't know.
James Dean, is that guy?
No, I thought James Dean was a song by Taylor Swift.
No, I don't know anything by. I don't know. Anyway, porn stars, they do exist, but we're not up to date. Do you have anything else about Homegames?
Yeah.
Yeah, the porn star lore. Do you have anything else about Homegames?
I mean, don't you still have your need to column, no?
Oh, yeah, I went through most of that. Like I said, the player object we need to replace with IDs and just use them as references to players and not actually have data in caches for players. Like it says, networking is cheap, so we should use that HTTP model. Oh yeah, I have this bullet point here about the model of stuff. So basically, at the moment, we have a game, like I said, which is the class that actually your logic in JS files extends, which makes games. And then we have game sessions, which are kind of instances of that game. And then we have players. But players live on the game instance and not the game session, which is pretty stupid. So I just need to figure out how to model that. Like, a game has players as opposed to a game session has players. It doesn't really make any sense. Like, a game session currently has players in it, and then it's associated to a game. The game does not have players, you know?
Yeah.
So I just need to remodel that stuff because I think it's pretty dumb. It's one of those things where I didn't realize it worked like that until I was going through it, and I thought, what the fuck? Why do I have players? I have players on both, by the way. Players on the session is just always empty. Very confusing if you assume that it's working, and it's just your players are never going to show up in there. It's really bad. So I got to figure that out. But things are looking up, you know. Things are looking better than they were before. Things are running well. Fix some bugs. Fix some stuff. Easier to navigate. Easier to use. Easier to fix, which is going to be really helpful. Specifically on the dashboard because it's some of the most complicated stuff just because it's responsible for so much. But yeah, stuff is good, and I'm like in the thick of it.
Yeah. That's dope. I like a lot of these changes. I don't think there's any change in here that I dislike. So, really good job, bud.
Except for removing the Kanye image, really fucks me up. Really chaps my ass, you know. Whatever the kids are saying these days, but I don't like that I had to remove the Kanye image.
No one says that. I don't think.
Plenty of people have a chapped ass in Pastel America, dude. You gotta open your eyes, look around sometimes.
You gotta open that brown eye.
I suppose.
Removing the Kanye in this case is sad. He's been a part of our project since the beginning. You know, what is his name? Hove.
That's Jay-Z.
Oh, shit. I wish I knew rap lore. I don't. I'm sorry. You know what I was getting at. Anyway.
I think so. Also, speaking of sad news, Young Thug might be going to prison. Very sad. Young Thug did nothing wrong. I don't know what this indictment is talking about.
What
but
is
he
this
did nothing
allegation
wrong.
against him for?
It's a whole thing. You could look it up. It's not good. I don't want to. He didn't do it.
Okay.
Young Thug is an innocent man. My friend Jeff did nothing wrong, and I hope it all works out for him. But very sad.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, just look up Young Thug. It's like all over. That's the crazy thing is that, like my Twitter feed is exclusively this news, and your Twitter feed is like Warhammer and dudes' butts and whatever you look at. You know.
My Twitter feed is mostly dinosaurs. Actually, I'll have you know, it's almost exclusively dinosaurs now.
Nice. It's on the same level as dude butts and Warhammer.
No, it's not. Dinosaurs are dope. Okay.
Okay. Sorry for disrespecting dinosaurs.
Don't disrespect dinosaurs like that, all right? Dinosaurs are cool. Every child wants to be a dinosaur at some point in their life.
Well, after today, your newsfeed will be dinosaurs and YSL legal issues. Be a very fun mix.
It's true. It's true. It'll start showing up on my Google News like Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, and Pete Davidson drama.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to have a more interesting feed because dinosaurs, like what's even happening in the world of dinosaurs anymore? Nothing.
Yo,
They're all
dude,
fucking
actually,
dead.
You want to know what's happening in the world of dinosaurs, or are you just throwing that away?
I do need to edit this episode before midnight. So
Okay,
we should probably
we'll call
save
it.
dinosaur talk.
Interesting dinosaur stuff did happen recently, though. Just going to put that out there.
It's a cliffhanger for next time, dude. We'll have all the time for dinosaur talk.
We'll have an hour of dinosaur lore from Yazeed.
Yeah. It'll be we could do a special where we eat food while we talk about dinosaurs. It'll be Dine and Dino. It could be
I love that. I made my O face for a second.
Or we can punch each other in the arm until it gets really until it's raw. That'll be the dinosaur.
I got you. I like the dinosaur more, a lot more. I don't want to get punched in the arm. I also don't want to punch you in the arm. Between the two of us, I feel like I would get hurt in this exchange, and you would probably be fine.
I just love the deflated. I told you that's a punchline. Oh my goodness, dude! I'm on another level.
Thanks everyone for listening. As always, our music was done by our friend Tynan, who's at Nightan on Bandcamp. You can check us out on Twitter at Homegames. Is it Homegames.io on Twitter?
It's Homegames.io on Twitter.
Hell yeah.
At Homegames.io.
Yeah, or you can catch us on our website, homegames.io. You can send us a like, comment, and subscribe on this YouTube and Spotify or whatever. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Punchline this man says.